cannot say you were on drugs. You cannot say that the victim is to be blamed. I invite you today to say no to gender-based violence. And this starts with us, with me, with you in this room, by firstly saying no to victim blaming, because we are shutting 2.6 billion voices. So let's end victim blaming now. Let's say no to victim blaming. Let's say no to these women who are not supporting their women counterparts. Let's say no to these men who think it is okay to act in a violent way with a woman. Let's say no to victim blaming, and let's end gender-based violence. Thank you.
Thanks for going first. So our comments again are one thing the person should keep doing, like in this speech and other speeches, and then one thing they might consider doing differently. So one thing I think you should keep doing is this shift you did at the beginning, where you allowed us to think through a scenario, and you asked us what it felt, and then you shifted the scenario, and you asked us what changed in our minds. I think you could get precise and ask us the same shift. So ask us to have a word in our mind or an image in our mind, and then ask the very same question when you started this second description, and then maybe use your pause and scan the room and keep people on the hook. Because my guess is many people's minds, a different image or a different word did appear. That's your point. The last thing, so keep doing that, very good. And then the shift, maybe contextualize what the 2.6 billion means and somehow make that local. So maybe you could drill that down to a particular context you live in or a particular context here, just so we can wrap our head around what that means on a more local level. Thank you for going.
Thank you.
Hello. All right. I've left my country, my beloved country, my island, to come here in the US for a very clear purpose. I wanted to discover the word more than discovering anything else. And I've seen something through those few weeks that I've spent here that I still see hope in the word. I see hope. Why? Because I've seen the coolness of a Cabo Verdean. I've seen the intelligence of a Zimbabwean. I've seen the boldness of a Nigerian. I've seen the confidence of a South African. These are just few people, but everyone here is amazing. And then I will tell you a story. Those kids that I see in the street in my country, I see them every day because I take the public transportation. And at first, I didn't want to touch them. I didn't want to talk with them because it's not my word. But then I decided, after some time, to see them closer, to touch them, to feel them, and to understand them. Why are they like this? Do they have, is that their choice to be like this? To be poor, to be homeless, to be unschooled? And I say no. It's not their fault. So after understanding their context and their lives, I decided to be like this. I'm just a cat. Imagine I'm a cat, and imagine yourself as a cat, but look at the mirror, then you see yourself, I can do it, I'm a lion. I'm a lion. So whatever happens, like people blaming you, people think you are crazy, people think you are unconscious of what you're doing. Why do you go to those people? Why do you want to help them? Because I understand them. That's the answer. So you can be a lion also if you choose to be a lion. You can look at your mirror, and even though you're little cat, you can be a lion. So being a lion is accepting to do sacrifices You go through many trials, challenges, blaming, but you're still there. Of course, you have like clean clothes, you have your comfort zone, but leave it. Go to those people. Try to understand them. That will make you a better person. And my message today will be very simple. Back there in Madagascar, we have a proverb saying, education is the best legacy. You have cars, you have houses, you have whatever, but it's nothing compared to education. So I see hope in the world because I believe in education. Let's contribute by sharing our values, our skills to those who need that. Let's leave our comfort zone to go to those areas that we purposely pretend not to know. And when we are ready to take the step, whoever you are, wherever you are from, whatever is your background, when you're ready to take the step, that's what I call revolution. Thank you very much.
Revolution man. Where is it? It's in your bag.
Yeah.
Okay, Tim's ready for you.
So I think you have really good command of the room,
Mary's
your eye
coming to help you with
contact,
this.
and the way you use your
I can
So use your feet when you need to move somewhere to make a point. But I really like the way you connect with people. Your eyes and your voice is conversational. The other thing I think would be helpful is to use some sort of case or scenario and maybe just dig further with the interactions you were talking about with the kids that were in that picture there. But I think painting a picture for what being a lion looks like and playing that through and then asking us to imagine, where maybe that plays out in our lives, would just become more concrete with the idea. Great presence.
Come on,
Good afternoon. Okay, so I went to law school. As soon as I graduated, I decided to be a civic and ethical education instructor in a high school. So teaching civic and ethical education is basically about teaching people to be nice, teaching people to be responsible. So then there's the obvious question. How do you teach people to be nice? How do you teach people to be kind? What do you do there? I mean, you can tell them to be nice. You can tell them to be kind. But how do you see that they act on it? How do you realize if what you've said and what you've invested matters at all to them? So I started to experiment. And I thought I shouldn't focus so much on telling students how they should act or what the appropriate answer is to a problem. I should act more. I should rather give them the space to reflect on their principles and their values. I should give them a space where they can discuss principles and ideals. I should give them the space to realize that their well-being and the well-being of the people that they love is very much related to the well-being of the society in general. But there were a few problems with that theory. First of all, our education system is quite odd in the sense that when you come to a classroom, you essentially expect the teacher to give you answers. You expect to have an authority. You expect to have a guidance from a specific person. And that person is expected to know the answer to everything, and that wasn't what I was about. And my educational technique seemed odd to my students. Additionally, as the only woman and the only 23-year-old teacher in my school, I felt the need to assert authority. I felt the need to show people my presence and to be a guiding voice in my classroom. But I suddenly realized that that was not necessarily me. That's not necessarily how I am, and yet I felt like it. Do you ever feel like it when you're exercising leadership or when you're exercising responsibility? Do you ever feel like you have to know the answers? You have to be assertive? And doubting yourself is a way of giving up your power? Do you ever feel that way? Yes. So I recognized that there was a problem in how I approached my responsibilities. And I didn't feel that that was necessarily how problems should be solved. I didn't think it was okay to believe that you should know all the answers, that you should be decisive, that that should be required of a leader. And then I started asking myself the age-old question: are women too emotional to be leaders? Are women too emotional to be leaders? And I thought, I don't think that that's the right question to ask. I thought that maybe it's more important that we ask whether we want emotion in leaders. Is it more important, or is it more significant to have our leaders be emotional rather than excluding women on that fact? And then I thought of the age of hunting and gathering. I thought of the age of industrialization. And I thought how that age very much required people to be authoritative. It required people to know the answers, to be responsive, to be physical. But that's not necessarily the case in our age. In our age, we want people to be creative. We want people to solve problems. But people don't usually, you can't pay people. You can pay people to be physically present. You can pay people to give you their time, but you can't ask people to volunteer their minds, their creativity, their heart, their passion. And in this day and age, that's usually more important. So in this day and age, a different type of leadership would also be required. One that allows people to volunteer their passion, one that is considerate of people working around you, that is considerate of the emotions and feelings of the people that work around you. But emotions are considered to be a sign of weakness and failure. Emotions are considered to be a sign of weakness and failure. And I want to move on to my last part, which is that I don't think that gender equality is necessarily about creating equal space for men and women, or involving women in the way we make decisions, but involving femininity in how we make decisions, and allowing men and women to explore both their masculine and feminine qualities.
I really liked how you opened with, how you approach this classroom and your struggle with how to exercise leadership or be an authority figure. I thought that was very nice. And so one thing to consider then is to just keep that thread going and to really come back at the end and maybe even invite us to show up a different way. So maybe even you could start more authoritative in your approach. And then as it's going along, you could start to speak and open up questions and open up the room a little bit like you were encouraging us to be. So maybe we could almost imagine you transforming, as you're speaking.
Yeah, that was my speech.
Yeah, so and become more concise. Good job, thank you.
And this is your clicker.
Wait,
That's forward. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening, Martin.
I'm very happy to be with you this evening. My name is Martin. I'm from Rwanda. And a small country which is now doing well for development. So this evening, I would like to welcome you to help me for advocating for girls' rights, social protection through prevention of unwanted early pregnancies. In Africa, now we are having a lot of girls who get pregnant before age 18. So you can see the numbers, 16 millions. And I know Africa is in our hands, like youth. It's up to work, to reach the development, to alleviate poverty, and to achieve to the goals. And why this big number of unwanted teenager pregnancies? Most of the time it is because of our culture issues, norms, beliefs, and some myth about sex and reproductive health. So we need to educate our youth, our daughters, our boys, so that they can become able to maintain and control their body. And secondly, in most of our countries, health services for youth, especially family planning services, are not legally allowed, and the youth have no access to those services. And some laws, they don't even accept the youth to be part of the beneficiaries of those services. And the last one, of course, is poverty. If our youth are not getting the school fees for attending schools, food, or whatever, so most of the time they are attracted by people who want to rape them and pregnant them in their homes. And most of the time they can migrate from the rural and remote areas and they go to the town to seek for jobs. Sometimes they get problems from the cities. And there are also more consequences you may know. The first one is dropout. When children are not educated, it means we don't have a bright future. The second one is the issue about health. Those kids, those young moms, they don't have any support for health, no insurance, no food, no clothes. Most of the time you see many of our countries are having a big number of street children because of these kids. We have to take actions. First of all, we have to confront our leaders to change the laws. We have to teach our communities, and we have to protect and support those teen mothers. And we need to teach them, train them how they can survive, how they can develop and start their small projects to get means for food, clothes, and health insurance. So the last one is that all of us who have to stand and raise our voice so that those voices can be heard and we can develop our Africa. Thank you.
I really like the consequences slide. The idea that it's not enough to say that teen pregnancy is a problem, but what are the impact or what is the effect? And I think it fit really nicely with that motivated sequence. My thing to consider next time would be when you get to that action step, I think you need to specify and speak more, choose one or maybe choose two. And maybe the one you choose in this particular case is what that image is showing. So when you went to the next slide, was that you standing up there in the image? Speaking, whoever the speaker was. But that, I think that would give us a specific kind of show us what that looks like.
Sorry.
I know, right, all of that. But thank you.
I don't know if this is going to work. I'm going to put it up. I know it's going to be, I'm going to put it up here. Okay. So don't worry about it. It's going to be, is it okay? Can you move your head? No. You can move from side to side? Okay. All right. I'm going to put this on. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Can you test it, make sure it works?
Yeah.
Say something?
Just say something.
Hi.
Okay.
Good evening. My name is Aisel Kipruta. I'm from Kenya. And I will be talking about quality education in Kenya and Africa generally. So first of all, I'll divide this room into two. And here, this is school A, this is school B. This school, I'm calling it Kansas Elementary. And this school, I'm calling it Wamego Elementary. So the thing is, all teachers teaching here, they have their children learning here. Why? So the reason is quality. And this is something happening in Kenya and African countries, that there is a lot of inputs in the education system, but there is little learning. There are no evidence. There is no data to show the magnitude of the problem and to show what should be done. Here, this is something which really concerns me, that there is a lot of schooling, but little learning. The question I always ask myself, are children learning? Children are going to school, but are we sure that they are learning? And you can see here, this is a case of Kenya. So I am a researcher. I go to schools, I go to households assessing learning, and you can see like 8% of grade 8 children cannot do grade 2 work. Last year, when we did the Kenya Certificate of Secondary Education, no student scored grade A. This is happening. You go to public places. Can someone read for me this? Trespassers will be instead of. This is happening. People are going to school, but this is happening in public places. Spelling mistakes. So why is this happening? I have 3 reasons. 1, the concept of banking. I feel that education in Africa, education in Kenya, it's about putting a lot of information in the pupil, and then at the end of the term, you, the bank. So you deposit, and then you take it back. It's so much focused on examination. Another issue, most of the schools, the learning environment is not conducive. Children learning under trees, lack of enough adequate or lack of enough facilities. And then also in 2013, the World Bank, through the Service Indicators Report, shows that they did a study on teachers' competencies, and it shows that only 35% of teachers had mastery. So you have like 35%. What are you teaching? What are you instilling in the learner? For me, that is tragic. It's urgent. Education Commission projections. If we don't take ardent measures now, this is what will happen in low and middle income countries. Only 4 out of 10 children of school age in low and middle income countries will be on track. And what does that mean? It means we'll have extreme poverty. There will be inequality between the poor and the rich. There will be unrest and all those kinds of social ills. What am I doing to address the challenge? So I'm a researcher in Kenya. I work with 50 researchers and 10,000 volunteers, collecting evidence, curating evidence, and transporting to show citizens that, hey, there is a problem. We need evidence to show where the problem is. What can we do? We go to over 158 districts. We reach 69,000 households. We assess over 130,000 children, and we go to over 4,500 schools to assess children, to know if children are learning or they are just schooling. How are we doing this? We use simple class 2 level test or grade 2 level test. And our interest is to know, are children learning? Can they read competent and fluent? Can they do basic math? And you can see these are a big problem, but we need to take action. We cannot continue doing the same things. First of all, I say the education system is focusing on examination. We need to shift that focus and ensure that our education systems in Africa generate results. Secondly, inclusion. What I am happy about is that most of the fellows here, everyone is doing something on education. Someone is doing girl child, another one is doing this and this and this. That is encouraging to me. We need to reach all children. We need to reach the marginalized. We need to reach those who are at risk so that every child can get quality education. Finally, we need more money. We need more money from the global community. We need more money from African countries to just invest in education, but also ensure that all money are well used. Education is the best investment. What are you doing? What are you doing to improve education in your country? What are you doing? What are we doing to improve education globally? Thank you.
I really liked the schooling versus learning, how you set that up front, and the other how you carried that metaphor. I wonder, so I like that, and I think that should be something to stick with, is coming up with a dominant metaphor, a dominant frame. And
Probably how we like the next one at this point.
hammering that metaphor over and over. Actually got there.
Put this in your belt.
The other thing I consider, I love the way we're interacting with like that half of the room. In fact, you should just open your body up to the rest of us too. Because it's really persuasive, especially when you set up a room half and half.
Let's go to the next slide before. Hello, everybody. As a teacher, I have always been struggling to guide the young generation. And in most of my classes I teach, girls tend to be brighter and more intelligent than boys. Yet, after meeting them for like few years later, it seems the opposite thing is happening. And I usually ask the following questions to my former female students when I meet them. How are studies? What did you become? And I mostly get answers like the following ones. Oh, I get married. And I couldn't handle the situations, like both studies and the marriage. Oh, my family, my parents didn't let me go for higher education. Or some would say, I think it's just enough for me like to get the BEPC, which is the diploma, the secondary school diploma in my home country. Listening to me, you might wonder why these girls are thinking this way. Why only girls are thinking this way but not boys? Girls in my community never ever think about getting a higher education. You could ask why. The society taught them to be so. It taught them to never ever think about getting something like higher, to only like be thankful about the least thing they get, and maybe hopefully a rich man would come one day and get married with them. Traditionally, in my community, boys are encouraged to go for higher education. But when it comes to girls, there are always like factors that challenge their higher educations. And I am fighting for those factors. And most of my my colleagues, fellow Washington Mandela fellows are fighting for the same challenges. And I really want my community to understand that it is very important to get higher education, especially for girls. And that higher education can help girls like in the future. It can help them to better care about their families as wives and mothers. And it can provide girls with the basic knowledge about healthcare and etc. and etc. I want really my community to understand the African proverb that states, if you educate a boy, you educate one person. But if you educate a girl, you educate a whole society and a whole nation. Thank you.
I really liked the statistics page there, and I wonder if you could couple that with a comparison to show where boys are at. So. Otherwise, and so maybe you're not squishing the two together. Last thing, you have a really great voice and it carries very well. I think it would be even more powerful to take away all the movement. So the next time, I would try to see if you could just hold still and not walk at all, and let your voice sink into us. It's really strong, and don't walk at all. Okay, thank you.
All right, guys. When a man decides to join the army, when he signs up for war, he gets an orientation program, yeah? He gets told you could get shot. You could find your neighbor or friend get shot. He gets told, oh, you could lose your life, And if you don't lose your life, you probably would suffer PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. He gets sent the memo. But when a woman decides to have a baby, no one sends her the memo. No one tells her, oh, you could experience tears, probably will not be able to walk for a while. No one tells her, you'll have a lot of stretch marks on your tummy. You probably will not like your body anymore. No one tells her, I don't think you'd like to have sex after a while, She'll not be interested in coitus. No one tells her, you'll be moody, you'll be sad, you'll be depressed. No one tells her about postpartum depression. You see, postpartum depression is the most common complication of childbirth, affecting 1 in 5 women. 1 in 5 women will be depressed after having a baby. 1 in 5 women would suffer sadness, moodiness. 1 in 5 women will feel empty, will think about committing suicide. 1 in 5 women will contemplate the thoughts about killing their own children. You see, in my practice as a psychologist, I've seen a whole lot of people suffer psychologically. But nothing was more devastating for me than to watch my own relative suffer postpartum depression. She was sad. She was moody. She felt empty. It spiraled down to psychosis. She thought about killing herself and killing the baby, and it was very heartbreaking to see her stigmatized, ostracized, suffer in silence, and ultimately, family members and even relatives urging that she be kicked out of the house. She was kicked out of the house. And it got me thinking, how come women don't know about this illness? It's an illness. How come our mothers are sent into battle without preparations? Pregnancy and childbearing is a battle. You'd have to fight for your life while delivering the baby. In postpartum, you have to fight for your life to stay sane. It's war. We're sending our mothers to war without preparation, without a memo. So what can we do now? Now that we know that we've sent a whole lot of women into battles without preparation, it's time we act, it's time to intervene in exactly what we're doing with my organization, the Postpartum Support Network Africa. We're educating mothers at hospitals, at antenatals, at postnatals. We're screening mothers. We're providing them support. We are sending mothers the memo. We're telling them that pregnancy is not a walk in the park. It's not what you see on Instagram with the postpartum body, you know, in the bikini and people saying, oh, 3 weeks back. That's not what motherhood is. Motherhood is a fight. And although it's beautiful, I'm not saying it's not beautiful, it is very beautiful. But then we have to educate our mothers. Because what I find most painful is that many mothers say, oh, I did not expect it to be like this. It's the expectations, which is unreasonable, that a mother should be strong, you know, she should not break, she should not cry. That kills these women the most, because then they begin to doubt themselves. Am I really a woman? How come A is not feeling this way? How come her own tummy is so fine? How come mine is not so good? Because we've created these unrealistic expectations of what a woman should be when she has a baby. It's time to send her the memo. It's time to have a conversation with the women around you and tell them it's likely you suffer postpartum depression. You could feel sad. It's important that we tell them it's okay to not be okay. It's important that we tell them that it's fine and they can get help and that there's support and that it is real. And it's not witchcraft. Nobody's chasing them from their villages. It's important that we send mothers the memo because postpartum depression is real. Postpartum depression is life. Postpartum depression could lead to suicide. Postpartum depression is killing our women, and no one is sending them the memo. Thank you. I forget to change my slides to like, you know. I forget.
It never happens to me.
I really appreciate how you collected stuff at the end and delivered that conclusion. That was really nice. That was the way you calmed down and you delivered each line. Did it.
Good morning, everyone. This evening, I would like to talk about women empowerment to rural development. First of all, let me quote Kofi Annan, who said, "Extreme poverty everywhere is a threat to human security everywhere." Ladies and gentlemen, let me give you some story that I encountered from a certain man from my village. This one is what we call Jennifer. Jennifer lived in a society whereby life is completely different from what we call life here in USA or everywhere. This is the society whereby most of the roads are impassable. This is the society where children have to move for about 7 to 10 kilometers for them to access primary school. This is the society where women education is completely zero. In other words, you find that it is not valued. For them, they think that if you reach a certain age, then you can go and get married. So you find that about 6 to 7 women under the age of 17 are getting married each and every day. That's the society where Jennifer comes from. What is this telling us? It is telling us that life about women is very poor due to the cultural practices and the other beliefs that people can have. This requires people to have something to change the society and to change everything in them. For example, my organization is working on empowering women in so many ways. One of them is to conduct weekly programs about business and entrepreneurship. And again, our programs ensure the facilitation of women groups whereby they can gather and form loan groups whereby they share some money as a startup for their businesses. Our program again works with the youth whereby we work in finding the potential donors who can work with them in terms of finding the resources that can be helpful in their everyday life in terms of education. My question this evening is, what is everyone doing to empower the youth in his or her own community where you come from? It is from this one that I call upon everyone here present that as you go on, as you go home this evening, you have to think about what you have to do to save the women in abject poverty. Thank you.
Thank you. I really like that story at the beginning where you were having us imagine the context that you lived in. I like that story. I think it's effective. And you might just open with that story. Don't worry about providing a quote before from another person. I would just use her voice to start and start with that story. It's very effective. And then as you drill down, you know, I thought that slide that was talking concretely about the savings and loan program, for instance, and the entrepreneurship and business is very good. And you might have just really honed in and described the kinds of people that serve, and then made a connection to how we might contribute to something like that, you know, that particular effort. And the last thing I'd say is, give us a sense of what's happened since that program took place. So the kinds of things maybe that have improved impact, kind of that visualization stuff on that motivated sequence part. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Yeah, since I turned 13, I bleed every month. I do not bleed because of injury, neither do I bleed because I sustained or I fell down from the stairs. I bleed because that's the way the nation has defined me as a woman, as a female. I remember growing up as a young adolescent. I sometimes use old clothes, rags, foams, even papers to pad off my periods. So when it comes to the issues that confront girls and women, I do not only whisper, I speak up, I take action. And I let the world know that girls and women matters a lot. I've spent the last 7 years of my life to advocate for issues that affect girls and women. And I will not relent in these efforts. When it comes to girls and women, the struggle they face are numerous, and they express them in various ways. However, despite these challenges, they still continue to progress. They still continue to move forward and help the society to move ahead. Today in Africa, 52% of the female population menstruate every month. And you know what? Just 15% of these statistics have access to menstrual hygiene, consistent and regular access to menstrual hygiene. This simply explains why 6 out of 10 women have either experienced or are currently exposed to reproductive tract infections. This calls for action. In Nigeria today, over 10 million children are out of school, and 70% of these statistics are female, are girls. What do we do? And research have also shown that lack of menstrual hygiene has been rated as the second factor that makes a girl to miss school and eventually drop out of school. So, will you fold your hands and watch girls losing out of quality education?
and watch them getting infected with reproductive tract infections, which can eventually lead to cancer, mental illness, and eventual death. Or will you join me in this journey as I advocate for increasing menstrual hygiene for girls and women, irrespective of their background or where they live all over the world? Let's remember that when we invest and empower girls, the community thrives, society prospers, and each and every one of us wins. Thank you, and God bless.
I really love how intense you are with your voice, and you have very little movement, and yet my guess is everybody here felt that you had a powerful message. So I think you should keep doing that, and it's really unique how you do it too. So whatever that is, keep doing that because it comes off as intense and strong. One thing you could improve is I think maybe 20 words per slide. That's it, maximum. Maybe just 15. Yeah, so a lot of those. And I would like to specifically know either an intervention that's currently happening where some success is being made on this, or something you think would work, maybe at a local context where you work, or maybe broader in terms of countrywide. Okay, thank you.
We're going to take 5, and we'll be right back here in 5 minutes. 5-minute break.
Yes, so we can do that. Where's the video?
It's embedded in this presentation that is going
Oh,
on right now.
okay.
I bet that's it.
Okay, there should be like a little tiny mute button somewhere on here, actually. Format video. Let's try this. Well, either way, we should technically be able to mute this. Just mute the whole computer.
Okay.
And I'm gonna now that I did that, I'm gonna go test to see make sure there's sound still coming through the mic, but it should be.
Great.
And then, do you think anyone else is gonna have sound? Probably.
I don't think so.
Okay. But yeah.
All right, please take your seats. Please take your seats.
I'll make sure it's on.
So you're going to make it on, yeah?
Just to talk a little bit.
Talk for a minute? Yes, I'm on. Testing. 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay, education is what remains after you have forgotten what you have learned in school. Albert Einstein. Ladies and gentlemen, my fellow African leaders, fellow Americans, tutors, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Ibrahim Rashid. I help people like yourself re-engage with education in Africa and girls' education in particular. And that's also important for my community and for my country, Ethiopia. In my presentation today, I'm going to show you why educating our daughters is of utmost importance to the progress of our society, but also to the well-being of our communities and that of our nation, because to educate a girl is to educate a nation. My country, Ethiopia, is Africa's oldest independent country. It's the second largest populous country after Nigeria, with a population of 99,500,000 people. Our country was never colonized except for a brief 5-year period when it was invaded by the Italian fascist dictator Benito Mussolini. Ethiopia has a unique cultural heritage, being the home of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, one of the oldest Christian churches in the whole world, and a monarchy that only ended in 1975 coup. This year, Ethiopia has officially overtaken our neighboring country, Kenya, as East Africa's economic giant. According to the IMF, Ethiopia's GDP is expected to hit $78 billion, a growth from $72 billion last year, and with an economy that's growing at a rate of 10.8% per year since 2015. It's all roses, right? But this has not really translated to a tangible progress in the education sector. Our national literacy rate stands at 49.1%. Breaking this by gender, male literacy rate stands at 57.2%, and female literacy rate stands merely at 41.1%. Compare this with that of the literacy rate of the United Kingdom, which has 99% literacy rate, and that also trickles down to gender. Both female and male literacy rate in the UK is 99%. So we have a lot to cover for our country, Ethiopia, in order to catch up with the rest of the world. The world has 758 million illiterate adults, and 3/4 of these live in sub-Saharan Africa and South Asia. 2/3 of the world's illiterates are women. As we speak, 62 million girls that should be in school are out of school. And this is not by accident. It's the direct result of barriers, big and small, that's preventing girls from not attending school. Ethiopia is ranked 109th out of 110th in terms of the literacy for countries in terms of their literacy. We are 109th out of 110. There's only one country behind us. So that shows we have a lot to cover, a lot to do. Challenges that face girls in Ethiopia in order to get their education include low household income and cultural values that prioritize the education of boys, education of boys. That means that girls are the first to miss out on school when times are tight. Girls bear the burden of household chores and often lack motivation and positive role models. The school environment and teaching practice often do not cater for girls, meaning that school is not a welcoming environment for girls. Girls who happen to go to school are expected to take care of household chores as well as when they return home, leaving them with no time to study or do their homework. This results in poor school performances and often results in utter failure in the academic world. People focus on the economic barriers that girls face, like school fees, uniform, the long distances involved to go to the nearest school, or there is no safe transportation. Maybe it's about attitude and beliefs, or whether society continues to cling on the tradition that oppresses women and hold them back from reaching their full potential. Today, many Ethiopian children do not have access to education opportunities they need to succeed. The population of Ethiopia is one of the poorest in the world, and countless Ethiopian children succumb to disease associated with the low standard of living, while others are forced to stay to help their families survive. Okay. That's the Ethiopian kingdom since the time of Queen Sheba, as you can see right behind me. As I conclude, this begins as young as kindergarten, as only 5% of Ethiopian children are enrolled in pre-primary school, according to data collected in 2011, according to UNESCO. At the primary school level, about 85% of boys and 80% of girls are enrolled in school, but only 64 to 65% of these children actually attend school. Lack of education opportunities lead to problems later in life, and only 39% of adults and 55% of youth are literate. Nelson Mandela once said, "Education is the most powerful weapon we can use to change the world." That is our vice president in our region in Ethiopia, So she's a female, as you can see. And we have 55 and head of an economic district economic heads in our region are 55 women allocated specifically for them. And 1/3 of our parliaments also have been allocated for parliamentarians. So we have achieved something so far, but we are not there. Thank you very much.
One thing I really liked about your speech is that you talked, that you did it at the beginning and at the end. You said this 10.8% growth in the economy since last year, if I heard you correctly. And then at the end, you're also giving this pretty remarkable statistic about women being in formal political roles. And I kind of like that idea of leveraging some things that are moving in the right direction, yet there's this gap. And I wonder if you could tell that story the whole way through, that here's some things pointing that we could kind of be a leader in this area, but there's a gap. And then the last thing, I really liked when you were in front of the podium. I don't think you need to go back there. And I think when you got into a little trouble, it's when you started reading. I think it would have been just fine for you to tell us what you learned, and then put some of the statistics on the slide so you don't have to worry about it. So you get them right. Okay? Thank you.
I'm going to put this, do this. I'm going to put it on your belt. Sorry.
Okay.
Can you just test it? Say something?
Okay.
Say something. Make sure it's on.
Leadership. K-State. K-State. Leadership. Today, I'm going to be talking about two problems which affect African youth. The first problem is drug abuse, and the second problem is HIV and AIDS. These are the two problems which affect young people in urban settings, in cities, because there's a lot of migration. What we have noticed is that the first one, drug abuse, it's caused mainly by peer pressure. Secondly, it's caused mainly by easy accessibility of drugs. When I talk about drugs and alcohol, they're easily accessible in terms of the fact that the legislation itself does not restrict selling of alcohol to young people. And secondly, drugs are usually cheap. Drugs like marijuana can be easily planted and they can be found in the African continent. But what really causes the the use of drugs and alcohol is really absence of recreational activities. Young people cannot do anything recreational that does not involve alcohol. In most cases, you'd find that the only recreation which is available to young people, it's either it is drug-induced or it does not promote healthy lifestyles. So this in itself poses the second challenge, which is HIV and AIDS. In my country, Lesotho, we have the second highest prevalence of HIV and AIDS in the world. And the highest prevalence is amongst young people, especially boys and girls. If you look at young people between the ages of 15 and 24, that's whereby you'll get the highest prevalence of HIV and AIDS. And the major cause of such a high prevalence is because of risky sexual behavior, which is highly associated with alcohol and drug abuse. So we have a problem. And secondly, drug abuse causes addiction. That's the major effect of drug abuse. And addiction causes a whole lot of social problems which we have in our communities. These social problems include crime, sexual assault, health problems, broken families, HIV and AIDS, alienation, and we have unproductive society members, which are the children which are fully under addiction. And this is a problem which we face as a continent in our cities, and we need to do something about it. Previously, there has been a lot of activities which have been done, namely to try to curb this, and this is involving young people through sports. But they suffer one great challenge, and the challenge is that when they involve young people through sports, the people who involved them did not have leadership skills and leadership qualities. Thus, what they did was they used the kids for their own personal benefit, for them to get rich through the soccer clubs which they will have formed. And that in itself meant that they owned the community projects which they are trying to do. So it was no more a project of a community, it was now his own personal project which he tries to make a living out of. And this in itself shows a gap whereby we need serious young people and leaders to come in and interdict, to come in and then bring up the type of leadership which is necessary, and the leadership which will be the leadership which will be able to mobilize communities to come and get more involved. And this is what I've been doing for the past 2 years. I have tried to mobilize young people such that they cannot be involved in drug abuse, such that they can be involved in drug-free activities, such that we can promote healthy lifestyles within our communities. But that is not enough. To date, I've managed to mobilize close to 200 young people to come and be involved in a bicycle project which we do, which brings them the dignity that they have, such that they don't get involved in drug abuse. We also have done community resource centers, which are very thoughtful as a way of trying to promote drug-free recreation. So what am I going to do today? Today I'm going to call upon all of us to mobilize young people, to think of innovative ways to mobilize young people, and make sure that we mobilize them to drug-free and healthy lifestyles. Thank you.
Of moving through that sequence, you know, the motivated sequence, and how you ended with a really strong call to action. And I'm sure you already know this, but your voice is really powerful and it moves, and that can be very effective. Set that kind of in the background and put drug abuse in the spotlight. But it might be very interesting to give a very specific, concise message about how the two actually have a pretty strong relationship with one another. Given the fact that data backs that up. Very nice. Thank you.
Can I start?
We will have Marito and then we'll take a break.
Can I start? Can I? Yes. Have you ever bought a pink dress for a newborn girl? Have you ever seen a woman who could not benefit from an opportunities because she was a woman? Have you ever been surprised or seen a woman driving a tractor? Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Marie. I come from Ivory Coast, and I'm passionate about women empowerment. I did my 10th grade in science and mathematics, and during the whole school years, the boy did not talk to us because we were 5 girls out of a class of 24 people. When I got my A-level, my mother told me that I cannot study petroleum engineering because I was supposed to have a family life. Because I'm a woman, I'm supposed to stay at home and take care of the baby. I end up studying business management because this is good for women. You finish work at 5, you go back home. I remember that day when I saw one of my friends and the hospital, I asked her, what do you want to do in the next 5 years? She proudly told me that she is going to travel, to go to Europe, find an husband, and get married. I was shocked by her answer, but I wanted to know more about it and understand her. So I started making research about women. Women make up 22% of the world population, but only 6% of the women, only 6 women are CEO of the Fortune 500 companies in the world. 796 million of women are illiterate. 1 woman out of 3 will be victim of violence against women. I wonder, God keep me safe up to now. In Ivory Coast, 23% of the young girls from the age of 15 to 19 are teenage pregnant. They have at least 1 child. 98% of girls are victims of female genital mutilation. 36% of the girls who are married has been married under the age of 18 years old. Why this statistic? It seems a bit scary because you have girls, you have mothers, you have sisters, you have nieces. Why did the status of women still being the same, even if the Sustainable Development Goal placed women as a key target? Why did my friend decided to limit us dream? Why did my mother decided to give me this advice? Why did the society decided to ask women to be cute, to be pretty, and not be competent? Maybe because of education. Maybe because girls do not have many inspiration. Maybe because girls are not exposed to career opportunity. Maybe because girls are limited to the kitchen. As African women, I decided to take a step forward. I wrote a blog which I call the blog of Maria de Jesus. Apart from that, I also founded an organization which is called the Smart African Women Leaders Platform, in which we train girls for them to take proactive action about their future. We inspire them to have a future, to have a vision, to define what they want to do in the future. Just take a minute and see. Just take a minute and imagine how the world will be if all the women were educated. You can then see that their child will be likely to go to school. The rate of infant and maternal mortality will decrease. The rate of postpartum depression will also decrease. The teenage pregnancy and child marriage will also decrease. Domestic violence will decrease because an educated woman will not keep quiet when her husband beats her. There are many reasons why you should support women education. Let us break the stereotype of gender role. Let us create more opportunities for women and girls. Let us make it easy for girls to be girls. Thank you.
Really well organized, right? You came through all the parts, and I really like the visualization step, all the things that would be otherwise if we followed what you were asking us to do in terms of the solution. You know, I'm curious about the woman on the tractor, and I think there would be a way to tell a story about that, whatever that represented. And I was hoping you'd come back at the end and let us into that person's life if there was a story there. So I think I would just figure out a way to kind of come full circle and wrap that up.
So now's halftime for the night. We have There's some food for the fellows in room 126, and you could take a bathroom break, and we will come back here and plan to start at about, is it 7:30 on the nose? At 8 p.m. Yeah,
No.
there's food here too. You can eat it. But
Get something
to drink?
really quick over there. No, I'm not.
Of course. Take your time. Oh, I know. Good. I think you should.
I'm going to leave things that I signed with me. I will be active. I'm going to call in. I got him off at like 7:30, and then I'll be on the road, so I can listen. I'm like, so I can listen, at least figure out what's going on next week.
Yeah, and we've got, I will have it for you to schedule. You and I are going up.
I'll be back by 10.
Okay.
I imagine I'll be here by 10. So
And just so you know, you and I go up Tuesday morning.
not this coming week. The week
No,
after.
we go up Tuesday morning with Katie Garrett, the three of us, and we're there Tuesday night, Wednesday, and we bring the group back Thursday afternoon. Cool.
The last time my mom and I tried not to get me to this attack. Yeah, it was too stressful.
Well, just using that computer. Right. Yeah. So it's a good one. So, the challenge. The delay. So you're gonna run the camera. It's more important to watch what they're actually doing and watch the screen. And then you'll have to check it against, check the screen to make sure you're still right. It was good. I thought there was a way to get around that. And I think
It's all this is. It's just running.
At least,
And going straight to process. But I was hoping I could get my other email into the hangout and like watch it live and control.
Might be a separate computer.
Right. Right.
Might be too much.
But it's, we're learning.
Cool, that's good to know though. I feel like we should type up like a point of instructions so that you're not holding the person who has to do that.
So, and I said something else. Right. Which I think was
NPR team.
yeah, it's gonna be very easy. And it'll be or like security leadership. Hands, we're gonna have multiple hands on it.
Yeah, so I think people will watch that.
Yes, definitely.
Good for fundraising.
Right, and that's what I hope that YouTube is a better option for people to easily get on and be able to watch.
Yeah, I actually knew that it wasn't working for agriculture. I got a text from my mom.
Oh no.
She's like I think there's something wrong because the sound keeps cutting out. And I thought she found that technology. I was like, are you? And then I saw you like playing this stuff. I don't think there's something going on. Don't feel bad. It's good to learn this stuff now. The spirit of leadership is like,
yeah,
that's like what's really important to make sure that there's a lot of people going.
Right, and I think we'll have lots more people on. I think for agriculture we had maybe maximum 10 in the time or so. But
yeah, I think that the spirit of leadership is really what needs to solid.
Yeah, it's a thing, especially on YouTube. I'm thinking we could have, I don't know what we're to set a goal, say 50 people.
Yeah.
That could be some cool numbers. We'll see how much we can push the screen to. It's always a delicate balance of too big. So we don't want to make it too easy and fancy.
Yeah, there's probably a window of once people decide that they're coming or decided, right? And then it's like, okay, well, if you could make it, maybe you could make this.
Exactly. And so just should be maybe a couple days before the event, or we'll see.
Yeah.
But
or basically, if there's an RSVP,
right?
Then you could start.
Right. There was like a cutoff.
Yeah. I don't know if there are RSVP.
Not for spirit. There's a cutoff for things like
barbecue.
Just for food.
Yeah.
For the program, anybody can show up. I mean, we prefer that they RSVP so we know how many to expect and we have a name tag.
Yeah.
They just came in the door. That's
Okay.
Oh, perfect. Well, we did it like 1995. It's like, and then it's like, minus. Would you love to talk about? Okay.
Super answer the phone. So stand up. That Really? Actually, choice because I don't have a cell phone where my moves. Yeah, I need to like actually opposite of that, which is normal. Especially salutations, because yeah, yo what up is my this is my go-to response.
Yeah.
It's what I say yo what up.
Yo, what up? If it's not somebody I know, they're like, is this the international question? But it just really depends.
So. I appreciate that.
I do pass because
that's good and that's really efficient. It's really don't need
you don't need
it's a lot of sugar.
yeah, that too.
That's like a
Yeah, nobody wants to see somebody with like oh yeah. Hopefully that
It's gotta be the
like
bubble.
the double bubble.
Yeah.
And then it like puts you on it and if it's hard, all of a sudden you're
Yeah. And also a necessity like this saliva. It's do you want to control the camera? You really want to. No, it's I like set it stationary. So it doesn't need anyone to run it. Mess around. What's that?
You want to go in here?
Oh, no, I'm not.
Oh,
Just,
oh.
she's here and then there's all the energy that you guys like. Are you up next?
Yeah. Yeah. Said I'm up next. I just need to change something.
Island is too small to even play football. So what are you going to talk about?
I'm gonna talk about something very interesting for you, Scott. You will love it. You're taking the measures?
Yeah.
Where you will stand?
That's how 30 minutes. Oh, yeah. I haven't decided yet. Let me see how it translates.
I will start right here, you know, with this guitar sound. Down, 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 down.
Where's the pointer thing? I want to familiarize with it. Oh, there it is. Oh, God. Ooh. Hmm?
Good. I'm glad. Okay. It's okay. I'm gonna do that. Because yeah, it's whenever it's set, like it's your capturing. Awesome, thank you. And first she's gonna end it when it bring it on. Watch. That's a way to make sure that it's working. It's, I don't know, but some emergency does happen, I don't know how much I'm actually. This is as well, I'll call it change, but I'm sure it needs to be. Oh my God. in a sense, that's where that's where a sexual thing happening. That's also a point of experience. Right. Yeah, that would have been fun. Those are the things that get the lesson said. Oh, yeah. Why not? Andy takes over. Someone having to be, arm takes over. That's it. That's awesome. And now I'm specialized that. There's another show.
Yeah. Are you ready? Huh? You ready to be ignited?
Are you next, Jerry?
I am.
I have to open one thing in my email and then we'll get yours going.
Okay. And okay.
This is here supposedly for someone to sit, right?
In case someone needs to sit. Yeah, you may use it. Anyone that would like to may use it.
It would be up there. Yeah, nobody.
I got the curly hair.
Leadership.
Okay, Jerry. You got it. Click that on.
Oh. Hello.
Look at that
island swag.
This is a swag.
Look at my island husband. Hi, my love.
Hey, babe.
Sees that pose right now.
I'm just using this because nobody did.
Igniting certain feelings of excitement within.
Ooh.
Can't wait to hear you speak.
Ooh la la.
Channel your island sex skills. Trust me, we'll all be
Oops, 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 oops. I would love to have a picture.
You can expect it too, Ruby. Anyone that I get to find for cookie.
Yeah.
Where is he?
Okay, Jerry.
It's not on you.
Okay, please take your seats. Places, everyone, places. Where's Stephanie? He's right there. I like fancy brownie bar. Where's your
But I can picture you.
Where's Stephanie? Maybe try to step in. Okay. Jerry's in place. When you're ready, Jerry, please begin.
Good evening,
Good evening.
ladies and gentlemen. Gentlemen, mostly. Well, I think everybody can read of it here, right? Guys are thinking, what the hell are you doing, man? Men are trash? Yeah, maybe, no. We'll figure it out. Man may be trash. Man who does all these kind of things you can see in this picture, they're trash, for sure. Men that violate women. Men that does not let women live, seek happiness. After all, we are all here seeking happiness, right? So, what means be a man? What means be a man? I'm asking you all, mostly you gentlemen. What is it to be a man? We need to be violent to be a man, aggressive, reckless. Is that we call be a man? We have to hit our beloved to be a man. I say no, we don't. And I'm not the only one saying no. Back home, We started like 25, but now we are in 9 islands of my country. We are more than 10,000 and we're growing. We are educating our young boys to grow as a man, but a man that is not violent, that does not stand for violence, that say no to violence. We are redefining masculinity. We are talking to each other. Because gender-based violence is not a problem of women, it's a problem of society, it's our problem. We are part of the problem, so we are part of the solution. We, gentlemen, alongside with the ladies, here, there, and everywhere. Education, we need to change the way we educate. Fathers, mothers, teachers, leaders. Let's educate the new generation that men and women, we are equal. We have the same rights, and we're seeking the same thing, happiness. Let's look at our role model. Let us be role models. I believe in an equal world. I believe in a happy world. It's not fairy tale, it's not utopia. It's real. It's happening back home, and I believe it can happen everywhere. We just need to believe. Gentlemen, I'm asking you, I'm calling you, get on board with me. Let's say no to violence. Let's not be passive toward gender-based violence. Let's raise our hand and say loud, we are not violent. We are not violent. That's it. Let's believe and let's live every single day this. And then as leaders, I'm here standing in front of top African minds. We can make a difference in Africa. We can make a difference in the world. Just we need to believe. Men are trash. Trash can be recycled. Right? Yeah. Those men who are trash, we can work with them, can bring them. We are not trash. I believe in an equal Africa, in an equal world. Do you believe? Yes. Let's go aboard. Thank you very much for your attention. How was it?
I love your passion. I love your passion. And not just your voice, but I like the way you deploy your body and the way you hone in on the group. That's very powerful. You have a lot of skills there. One thing you might consider differently is I'd really like to hear about what those 9 islands and those 10,000 people are doing. So if you could give us some tangible, is it having conversations? Is it people standing up saying, I'm not violent like you made us do? Whatever it is, I'd love to hear that model that you're using and how it's making an impact, and then invite us to think about ways that might fit in our variety of spaces. So thanks.
You'll just
and thanks for kicking us off after dinner. Don't let us rest. Good. Let's keep it up.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Gloria Chukia. I'm from South Sudan. What do you think that figure stands for?
Money.
It's certainly not the amount of money in the lottery. So in case if you are wondering. 2.3 million, that's the number of people who died in my country in the war, which started in December 2013 to date. And for a country with a population of 12 million, that's 1/6 of people dead. 1 in every 6 person you would have known would be dead. This includes family members, friends, co-workers, schoolmates, teachers, your own children, your own parents, all gone. May their souls rest in peace. South Sudan is the youngest African nation. We were born on 9th July 2011. So in 3 days' time, we will be celebrating our independence. But unlike the 4th of July celebration for the United States of America, there wouldn't be much to be happy about for South Sudan. There are 1.9 million people who are internally displaced within the country, who live in the protection of civilian sites, who live in IDP camps. 1.8 million people are refugees in the neighboring countries, Uganda, Democratic Republic of Congo, Kenya, Ethiopia. 5.5 million people are food insecure, and of which 68% of the population in the above category are women, children, elderly, and the most vulnerable groups. My people do not only need the end of war to have peace, but my people want to be free from the consequences of war. In my country, rape, murder, abduction, massive looting, destruction of properties, child soldiers, continues to be the order of the day, and of which women and children suffer most of the effects of the war. My organization, Health Link South Sudan, is a national organization. We do support women and girls who have undergone related violence in scenarios during the conflict. We do support them with psychosocial support activities. We run a women and girls friendly space where they are able to come together and share their experience to cope up from the abuses that they went through during the violence. We offer child protection and family tracing for children who got abducted during the conflict to reunite them with their families back. We also offer medical services like clinical management of rape and sexual assault cases for survivors who underwent scenarios of sexual abuse during the war. So far, we have reached to more than 10,000 people with our services. We have trained more than 500 community members, stakeholders, in different strategies and ways how we can support women and girls to cope up. The South Sudan war began as a result of internal political party misunderstanding and escalated into a conflict between our two major ethnic groups. Anything can start a war. Any misunderstanding that isn't handled well, intolerance of different opinions or views are the igniting factors. And the effects of war are long-lasting, not just only on the country, but on the survivors, the women, the children, and the men. So let's remember the word of President Ronald Reagan. Peace is not absence of conflict. It is the ability to handle conflict by peaceful means. If we do this and have a peaceful country, this in turn will make us build a peaceful nation which will support our women, which will make our women not have long consequences of war in their lives. Thank you.
I thought your first 90 seconds at the pace of that was just really artful. So it was really deliberate, it was controlled, it was careful, right? Slow. And what I liked about the pace of the first 90 seconds is then when you went in and made the transition to tell us about the demographics of the country and such, you shifted and changed. And I just thought that was really impactful. That's a real skill to be able to start a certain way and move another. And then you sort of ended the same. I would have liked to hear a little bit more details about your organization and about how you actually deliver that. And I was really intrigued by the training of the 500 community members and what they were doing, what you were training them to do, and then the amount of people they were reaching as a way to, mobilize lots of people. So just some more specificity on this so we can wrap our head around what seems to be just a really big issue. So thank you.
Do you have slides?
No.
Okay. You want to use this or this? Okay. All right. So it's ready when you're ready.
I have a slide.
You do have slides? Where are they?
I see on the.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
My first one.
I listed them under Abdul. That's why I couldn't find them. Okay. So this is your clicker.
Okay.
That's forward. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you. Hello. Hey. Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. I will start with a question. Do you know the rate of literacy in your country? According to UNICEF, in United States of America, it is more than 99%. In sub-Saharan Africa, it is about 64%. In my country, Niger, it is less than 30%. The lack of schooling and poor education has negative effects. And if you do not improve the access and the quality of education, the children will leave school without acquiring the basics. And it will greatly impact the social and economic development of our countries. Patients will die by the lack of doctor or by their incompetency. Building will collapse into the hand of incompetent engineer. Faithful will be misguided and introduced into terrorism by incompetent theologians. The proverbs say, if you want to destroy any nation without war, destroy the education systems. Today, education remains an inaccessible right for millions of children around the world. More than 70 million children of primary education age are not in school, and almost 800 million adults are illiterate and do not have the awareness necessary to improve their living conditions and those of their children. Education faces many challenges. I'm going to talk about 3 of challenges that we have in my country and most of developing countries in Africa. Poverty and inequality. In most African countries, children don't have access to basic education because of gender inequality, health and cultural identity. These children find themselves on the margin of the education system and do not benefit from learning. That is vital to the intellectual and social development. Many children from disadvantaged backgrounds are forced to abandon their educations to work and provide support for the family. The second challenge that we face in my countries is the lack of proper facilities and educators. Many of underdeveloped countries do not have the financial resources to build schools, equip them, recruit and train qualified teachers. The educational budget is generally not sufficient to enable countries to establish and run inclusive education system for all the children. Finally, the dropout rate and educational failure remains high. The last challenge that I'm going to talk about is war and conflict. The education is most of the time destroyed by wars, conflict and natural disasters, where children are displaced and some infrastructure are destroyed. In fact, children suffer the most. In countries affected by emergencies, children often lose their home, family, member, and friends. Parents and children affected by crisis consistently names education as one of their top priorities. But despite the benefit of children, education is often the first service suspended and the last service restored in crisis-affected countries. What action can we take? What action can we take? In my organizations, we try to mobilize, encourage parents over communities members to be innovative and build their school without waiting the government support and provide them with materials. What can you do? For the development of our nations, let us commit to helping out-of-school children gain access to education, giving class to the students to raise their level during our free time. Just become teacher. Let's develop our countries by promoting education. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think I really like that slide about what is happening now, the slide you had before and after. And I think you could have told the story about what that slide is showing, so we can make it see a little. Particular ways to address it. Thank you.
Okay, hello everyone. Good evening and thank you for coming. My name is Ruby and I'm a storyteller. So I'll begin with a story. In 1909, in a tiny village in the then Gold Coast, a son was born into a polygamous family. He was the 9th child of his father and the only son of his mother, the only child of his mother. If any of you know a little about African tradition or culture of that era, you'll know that a woman with one child was just slightly better than a woman with no children. But this mother had a dream for her son. So she sent him to school where he learns to read and write and dream. And that picture up there is the house in which he was born. 20% of school children, that is 130 million children all over the world, cannot read or write after 4 years of basic education. In Ghana, that figure goes up to about 50% of school children who cannot read or write after 4 years of basic schooling. In the words of Kofi Annan, and I quote, "Literacy is a bridge from misery to hope," end of quote. I'll paraphrase that and say, literacy is a bridge from poverty to dreams. Research shows kids are more likely to start and finish a book if they can engage with the characters they're reading about. If the hero or heroine looks just like them. In the few public schools in Ghana, the books that are available are usually about Caucasian kids or about animals. And this is where I come in. I write books about Ghanaian children for Ghanaian children. I've written about friendship, bullying in school, first love, first heartbreak, haunted houses and lost treasure, deformed dogs, and loss of a loved one. I've also written about rape and child abuse. In my stories, the characters have black skin, short hair, flat noses, and thick lips. The characters are not always good. They don't always get along with their siblings or parents. Sometimes they get into trouble in school, they fight with their friends, but then they make up and they eat. I like food, so I write about food a lot. They love to eat, and I make sure to describe the foods they eat. Yams with palava sauce, fufu with chicken granite soup, and wache with hot spicy pepper. I'm doing this because I hope that these three things would happen. One, that kids will enjoy a good story and that hopefully they become lifelong readers. Two, that our kids will learn to read and write. And three, which is most important to me, is that our kids will begin to dream. They'll learn to push themselves to be more, to do more, to reach for more. They'll know they can be anything they want to be. They'll know that there are no limits. So this is what I want you to do. Next time you're getting a gift for your son or daughter, your niece or nephew, your grandson or your grandchild, get them a book with a character who looks like them. Read to them, ask them questions, applaud their answers, celebrate their ideas. Make reading fun, allow them to dream. And the more books that are bought that include Black children, the more publishers will be willing to invest, to publish books, to promote books, and to market them. And soon the African children book section in a bookstore will not just be limited to half of a shelf in the bookstore, but probably will be an entire section. Oops. So we return to our story. To the boy who learned to read and write and dream. He grew up to be a man and he lived his dream. He led Ghana into independence in 1957. And because of his efforts, several other African countries also gained their independence in the years that followed. Who knows what great thoughts, discoveries, or inventions are locked up in the minds of our children? Give them the key to their dreams. Give them a book. Thank you.
Held everybody in this room talk for 5 more minutes or 10, and I think people would continue to listen. So that's kind of the president's comment. I like this poverty to dreams. I think you might even, literacy, poverty to dreams on slide 1. You carried that metaphor through. You brought it through when you were talking about the dreams. I think fleshing out what you mean by poverty, and I take that as more than just lacking money. So I think flesh that out. As we bumped into each other last week, I still think you could open with a telling of from one of your books. I think you should read from one of your books and emphasize how it's otherwise, and put the image up there because you describe it later. You describe what's happening in your books, and
Worldwide, over 300,000 babies are born due to sickle cell every year. 2/3 of those are from sub-Saharan Africa. That number is projected to go up to 400,000 by the year 2050. And sadly, 85% of those at that time will still be from sub-Saharan Africa. Sad estimates suggest that 90% of those who are born do not make it up to their 5th birthday. They don't make it to their 5th birthday, so this means they don't get to celebrate life like as a kid. My name is Tusubira. Tusubira literally means hope for those who have been to Uganda. My mom gave me that name because she believed she wanted to instill hope in herself and hope in those around her that probably I'll not die to become one of the statistics. What does this mean? The dilemma of the person living with sickle cell goes beyond struggling with the overwhelming health effects of this disease. 6% of the children in my country with sickle cell have stroke when they're children. 2% of the people who get disabled from secondary disabilities are getting it because of sickle cell disease. Not accidents, but sickle cell disease. The deeply rooted stigma alone in the society causes sometimes families to hide their sick, or causes sometimes families to hide their sick, or even shun away from social functions for the fear of being labeled cast or excised from social functions. When my mother gave birth to me, she was literally divorced by my father. So I grew up seeing her cry most of the time. She would have been probably crying because her baby was in pain and there's nothing she could do about it. Or probably she was crying because the love of her life left her and she's here struggling with that baby, their son, and he's nowhere to be seen. Or she was crying because of what the society and people are saying, that her kid is sick and she's cursed and she's not good. Or she was crying because her boss could not understand the fact why she kept on missing work every other day, because her child was sick. Or she was crying just because the teachers would not understand why her baby would not make it to school every other time. But I am here. I am a young African leader. What does this mean for Africa? Aspiration 1 of the Agenda 2063 looks at a prosperous Africa based on inclusive growth and sustainable development. 400 daily adjusted life years are being lost per 100,000 people due to disabilities alone. Until we choose to empower our vulnerable and marginalized people, especially those living with sickle cell, then we may not make a change. We may not live up to the expectation of aspiring that by the year 2063, we would see a community where people who are vulnerable and marginalized are taking part into inclusive growth and contributing to economic development. My mother saw it wise that probably Tusubira would be fit, and so she chose an education She chose to empower her disabled and vulnerable son through an education, through access to healthcare, so that probably he may be a contributor to the economic growth that probably we need to see in Africa. What does this mean? What does this mean? Until the time we choose to see that people who are disabled should not be left out. People who are disabled should not be ignored. People who are disabled should be included and loved. That's the only time we'll probably make a difference in society. My mother chose hope to Subira. She chose faith and not desperation. She chose love and not depression. Until the time that all of us can choose love, hope, and cherish for those of us who are vulnerable and marginalized, that will only be the time when we'll probably make a difference into society. That will be the time when we can probably see a difference being done because we have chose love and hope. We have chose to cherish and nurture. What is my call to you now? What is my call to you now? You shouldn't understand that at this time, I know sickle cell is everywhere. We have sickle cell in Africa. From that, you can clearly see that sickle cell has originated from so many places. But I call upon you to have hope, like my mother did. I call upon you today to choose hope, to choose Tusubira. Then we shall make a difference in the lives of people who are vulnerable and marginalized. Thank you.
You just have an excellent command of the pause, right? So lots of people have shown us that tonight. You've really amplified how to use the pause in a real excellent way to allow us to fill in the blanks and to hold the group for in a real intimate way. So I really applaud you on that.
Thank you.
Real good.
Thank you.
What I would consider different, or what I would consider to enhance this, is really trying to, and maybe it was in that slide where that conference was going on with 4,500 people, but I like to wrap my head around the kind of on-the-ground action, and to the degree that you could map out what it looks like to get to 2063 in a fuller way where all kinds of people in society are participating. I think that'd be helpful. So some sort of connecting the dots between 2017 to 63. And if it's like what you were showing in that image, maybe describe just a little bit about how that's happening. Because the rest of it is just on the mark.
Thank you.
Okay, do you want to use this or the podium? Okay.
Can you guys see me?
No. This is how you advance it, all right?
Wow.
That arrow.
This arrow? This one?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Should we start? My name is Matlako Mahapa. I am from a small township called Seshego in Limpopo. I'm a graduate of 3 of the top universities in Africa. I have about 3 years work experience, and I'm a 2017 Mandela Washington Fellow. Have you ever been in a room with an applause, but within that applause, you can't help but sense a sense of sorrow because there's something missing? That is an image of my daily life, my daily reality. And that is because this is what I call home. When I go home, my neighbor, there's 15 people that live in a 3-bedroom house. Next door to them, it's a mother who lost a child to suicide because of nyaupe, and another one who's missing because he's a drug addict. Next door to that is another family whose mother and father died from HIV and AIDS, who one of the kids died from a shooting. One of the only girl committed suicide, and the last born is left caring for 5 kids. You come back to my house, and I dream of the day that I had to watch my father chase my mom with cancer with a gun. And I thought we were gonna die, so I hid in a closet. So what makes me different is a question that I had to ask. It's a question that I have to ask myself on a daily basis. Perhaps technically it's the fact that I went to a private school as opposed to a public school. I went to primary school in a public school, but because of some sort of economic access, I went to high school in town. That gave me access and exposure to information and a network of people who can access the economy. Not that I can access it now, but it gave me access to a network of people that can access the economy. But when I go home, home where my ancestors are and home where my heart is, they don't have access to knowledge. They don't have access to these global career opportunities. They don't have access to this network that I preach about. They don't have a tangible roadmap to success. They're despondent, they're confused, they lack drive. And can you really blame them? There's drugs, there's alcohol, there's poverty, there's teenage pregnancy. And I ask you again, can you really blame them? The sorrow comes from the fact that I am 1 out of 20 people that can claim to have a high level of education. I'm 1 of 50 people in South Africa that can aim to have a postgraduate qualification. I'm 1 of 3 people that have some sort of job. I live in an economy where 45% of my people live in absolute poverty. Therefore, how can I be happy? What makes me different? Is a question that I ask myself on a daily basis. Is a question that you should ask yourself. Surely education is the redemption and that's the answer. Surely that's why I'm here. But hold on, in South Africa, 1 out of 5 graduates have a job. That means 4 out of 5 graduates from higher education institutions are unemployed. This is a beggar with a postgraduate qualification that we're all asking for that does not have a job. We've got automation that's a reality that's taking away jobs in our country. Then surely my success is an illusion of being part of them. Who are they? In my country, they are white people. In my country, they are the landowners. In my country, I am nothing because I own nothing. Therefore, what makes me different? What makes me different is because I am me. What makes me different is you. And I want you guys to say after me, what makes me different is me. What makes me different is because I made a decision to disrupt the status quo. I made a decision to ask myself, am I really advocating for an education system that actually shackles me? Am I really fighting for an education system that had an output of a PhD candidate who's overqualified but not skilled enough to do anything about the economy? Am I really fighting for an education system that teaches me to refer to my people at home as them? I made a decision to say this is us. I am not 1 out of 20. I am 20 out of 20, and that's what I'm fighting for. I am different because I am you. I am different because I'm an entrepreneur. You are different because you're an entrepreneur. You are different because you're an innovator. I am calling you to innovate. I'm calling you to ask yourself the deeper questions as you're fighting for education. I'm asking you to ask yourself deeper questions about the system of oppression that we're fighting against. I'm asking you to innovate. I'm asking you to go back home and think about what education really means. I am asking you to internalize the fact that entrepreneurship is not a job. That's what they teach you. Your system teaches you to look for a job. If you're an entrepreneur, you ask yourself the difficult questions. You ask yourself, what is gender-based violence? You ask yourself, why are you here? I ask myself, why did I not die that day when my dad was carrying a gun for my whole family? I ask myself about my neighbors, and I ask myself, what does it mean that I can call them them? What does it mean that somehow I identify with the white people that stole my land? What does it mean that these white people are Christians and my people are still following this religion that's keeping us shackled? But there's hope, because I am me and you are you, and I'm an innovator, and I have a program that does exactly that.
I really like the way that you sort of, for lack of a better word, crescendo, like go build, and then stop, and then build back up. I think you do that in a way that nobody else has. And that considering next time, what point of that do you want to hit the top of? Is it the 2020 statement? You know, I'm not one of 20. That seems really impactful. Is it the pushing on people to see themselves as an entrepreneur and innovator in the face of systemic oppression or violence, what you're pointing to there? So I think trying to figure out in that speech where the height is, and then because you're so good at that, I think you could be for like 5 seconds and not say anything after that. Very, you know, almost really beautiful way to go. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. For the next couple of seconds, I'd like to ask you to turn your attention to Nyasha. Nyasha is a 22-year-old young female lady. Nyasha presents to the regional hospital coming from home in the rural areas. Her complaint is that her face is disfigured. Over a period of 15 months, what started off as a small pimple has gradually turned into a hard mass extending from her left ear to the right side of her jaw. What is this? Basic tests are done at the rural hospital, and surprisingly enough, she has a benign tumor of the jaw, which, if she had presented earlier on, it could have been prevented or managed before it got to this extent. Why did she not present early to the hospital? The reasons she cites: she did not have $5 for bus fare to get to the regional hospital. She had to take care of her siblings back home. She had to commit to doing the chores as she is a young female. At the same time, the distance she has to travel is very long from her homestead to the hospital. And most of all, she thought it was just a small pimple, and eventually it was just going to subside on its own. These, ladies and gentlemen, are the reasons why people in my country are failing to access medical facilities for that particular reason. My name is Cleopatra Matanire, and I'm a dental surgeon, but most of all, I'm Zimbabwean, and I'm a proud Zimbabwean because I love my country. Statistics for my country: we have a population of 15 million, and we have 1 medical school and 1 dental school. On average, 10 graduates who are dentists make it from that dental school, and 15 dental therapists. As I stand before you, I graduated as one in a class of 7. I graduated top of my class. And for this reason, it does not make sense to people why I choose to go to the rural areas to work at the hospital I work at. Most of you, if I ask you right now, what does a dentist do? The first thing that pops into your mind is you think of teeth. Am I right or am I wrong? Yes. If you look up at the slide that is right in front of you, that is all the area of my expertise. I work with the ophthalmologist, I work with the ear, nose, and throat surgeon, I work even at times with the neurosurgeons, because all of that is my area of expertise, the craniofacial region. So everything that can occur in that region, it be any disease in the skin, the muscle, the bone, any dental or periodontal structures, even the nerves, any disease in that area is my area of expertise just because I'm a dentist. I hope you're enlightened. So each and every person who has a disease like that has to present to me, and I have to manage them. But my challenge is that most of the patients in the rural areas, they do not have access to such. 50% of the graduates I told you about decide to leave the country because of the declining economic status in my country, Zimbabwe. This leaves people in a difficult situation. Only 10% of those graduates decide to get employment in government institutions, of which I'm an example. What do I do? After having realized the problem that my country was facing, that people in the rural areas do not have access to dental care, I got a job in a provincial hospital where 90% of the patients come from the rural areas. This did not make sense to my friends. Even now, they keep on asking me. But what is it, ladies and gentlemen, that makes me keep on waking up each day with the team of colleagues that I have up there? Go to the rural areas, to the rural health care centers once a week to give those dental health services. It is because we save lives. It is because we diagnose diseases before they go far. It is because we improve the quality of life. It is because we increase the productivity hours of these patients, and hence our economy can thrive. A healthy individual, when cumulatively brought together, make up a healthy community, and healthy communities make up a healthy nation. My question to you, ladies and gentlemen, is as all of us are in this place this evening, we all have privileges. What would I say, or how do I define a privilege? They can be resources, the networks we have, the knowledge we have, awareness, our able-bodiedness, the voices that we have. Ladies and gentlemen, I cannot be blind to the invisible system of the privilege that I am a part of. Look at your hands. What privilege do you have? My privilege can be used to save nations. Let us gather up together and work towards building a healthy nation. Let us make patients aware of the dental health system. Thank you.
That was really nice, that transition there in front of the podium. You're the first person to step out behind that. That was fabulous. So I thought that story up front was really powerful. The way you told it, it was clear, concise. I could imagine it in my mind. Nicely done. I also like the way you speak with expertise. So I think you had a great command of the statistics. You spoke with a lot of authority and command of the subject, and that quite well done. I think the only thing I would consider is figuring out a way to maybe provide a little bit less in terms of statistics, so you can say a little bit more about how the rural health clinic that you were describing functions and the role it plays in that system. And maybe you could even give us a few examples of what has come because of that effort. So what is starting to change, or what do you think is starting to turn the corner? But well done.
Thank you.
It's done. Do you want to use the lectern or this?
I want to use this.
Okay. So where should we hook this?
Where am I rolling it from?
What?
Where am I rolling it from? Just
Rolling?
the slide.
The slide? Well, Cleopatra might still have it. Make sure your volume is on. All right, you ready to roll?
Imagine a world without women, how the world would be today. Imagine a world without mothers, giving care to babies and nurturing minds. Tim, imagine in the next US elections, your wife taking over as president of the great United States. The pride and the joy it brings to you. And all of us can imagine years back, when women did not have the access to empowerment or education, how did the world look as compared to now? And this is why I say this world is not a man's world. It is more a woman's world, because without us women, there wouldn't be wise nurturing for folks to mature at nature. I'm Deviera Tubakasel, and I'm from Liberia. I work for a women's organization that promotes women and girls empowerment. And over the years, we have empowered 200 women with vocational and technical skills, 93 women with small business development, and created access to education for 475 underprivileged children. And these activities have contributed to my country's national development. Empowerment is a word we hear every day. We speak about it every day, in different tones, in different languages, and it takes so many forms. But in our societies, the practices are far from the realities. And that is why I'm here today, presenting a case on why we should, as a people or continent of Africa, support equal access to economic empowerment for women and girls. Equal access is when everyone has a safe space to develop and maintain relevance. The 2015 Global Developmental Report reveals that 40% of the world's labor force are women, and 53% of the food we eat in Liberia is produced by women. 61 to 68% of public relations agents are women, and 59% of public relations managers are women. But yet, women account for 37% of the world entrepreneurs. What is the problem? There are so many reasons. And some of the reasons are unfair access to economic opportunities. Some of the barriers are high interest rates, lack of collaterals for women, sexual violence and abuse, and political intimidations and abuses. As a survivor of political violence and sexual abuse, I understand the frustrations women have to look beyond to succeed. As a teenager, I had to flee to Ivory Coast, and that's my risk country. I was parentless because of the kind of work I was involved with, which was advocacy. I faced a lot of struggles. I had to face prostitution, and I had to decide between being a good child and maintaining my dignity, or deciding to go for the worst. But it was not enough to stop me from pursuing my dreams as an advocate. And today I am who I am, the woman like strength and determination. It was and is still a hard battle fought, but I've been able to transform the lives of hundreds of people through my advocacy, giving hope to the weary through our empowerment projects. Women economic empowerment has a trickle-down effect on thousands of households, welfares, and empowered women make informed decisions. That is why I want every one of you in this room to support women's economic empowerment. Their kids enjoy better lives and they raise healthy families. And women empowerment increases national productivity. Therefore, as you are seated here today and you care for a world of peace, of stability, I call upon you in Mind Women Deliver tone. Empower women, for they will deliver strong economies. I say, empower women. Give us economic opportunities and we will deliver lasting solutions. My fellow fellows, I thank you.
The opening is really strong. The imagines. I like both times when you came out in front of the podium. You called it out at the beginning. You just did it here at the end. That was really nice. And you have a really great command of a really forceful command of language use that I think is effective. I think it's this really strong, if not the strongest call to action we've heard in terms of with conviction and with some tangible, the tangible programming you were talking about. And so I guess the only thing you might consider more is just telling us more about how you put that organization together, or what's next in terms of what's the next phase as you build that out?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, you can start with me. Is that okay? Okay. Imagine a household where a mother and a father have twins, where the twins grow up together, which is a boy and a girl. They play, they laugh, they enjoy everything that a family can provide for them, which is what? Food on the table, going to school, being able to play with other kids, because they are kids, right? Yet they are poor, but the only thing that they think about is, I'm gonna go home and I'm gonna eat and I'm gonna sleep, until they hit puberty. When they hit puberty, the society teaches the boy, you're becoming a man because you have a thicker voice, because you have a beard. Yet society doesn't teach the girl that although you are changing, you are going to start bleeding. Although you are changing, we have to teach this girl about sanitary pads. A boy would be taught, to be a man, you need to have sex. This is how you use a condom. Back home, we have programs called My Future is My Choice. We have guys coming in, showing the boys how to use a condom. Yet, there's nobody teaching the girls how to use a pad. Yet, the first time this girl would go to a shop to buy a pad, everybody in the shop would be like, hide the pad in a plastic bag or under the newspapers. It's a shame. You are bleeding. Yet when a boy bleeds, he gets a tissue. Oh, shame, just pour some water over his head. He's not feeling well. But when a girl bleeds, nobody teaches her about what to expect. The pain she has to go through, being bloated, feeling like she's gonna explode, having emotions about having emotions that she doesn't understand, and crying, and being called, you're just a girl. Missing school for a week while her brother is at school because she's bleeding, or going to school and actually bleeding out and being bullied. Her brother can't protect her because he doesn't understand. Yet they are twins. Equality. How? When we exclude the girl with school, because it's a shame if she goes to her father to protect her, daddy, I need a pad. We don't have money. We only have money for bread. That is when reality hits that we are actually very poor because I can't afford to get a pad. Yet my brother has free condoms at school. Yes, back home, we have free condoms at schools. Sanitary pads are a right, not an expense. Equality is when you treat everybody equal at the same level. Help me in my movement called Here for Her, where we try to produce reusable sanitary pads because, oh God forbid, if somebody has to say we don't have money to buy the pad. Reusable, she can use it, she can wash it, it will dry, she can reuse it again. Nobody is poor again. Equality. Help this girl achieve her goal with her brother to finish school. Oh, equality, where we produce comic books for the boy to understand what is bleeding, what is swelling out, why they shouldn't bully the girls, how they should help this girl prosper and become a better person. Join me in this movement to help my sister, myself, your mother, to talk about what menstruation is, to talk about why it's okay to bleed, to help her understand that she doesn't have the option to just say, oh,
For me to finish my grade 12, maybe I need to get pregnant so that I do not bleed to finish my school, to complete my year. Because these are the options that they are left with. Join me in my movement. When was the last time, gentlemen in this group, you bought for your sister a pad? When? Start tonight. I thank you.
I just really liked how you used the space up front here. I think it'd be really interesting to stay on the stool even longer.
Okay.
The way you started, you might have been able to tell that whole story on the stool and then came up kind of on the call to action. So I think you could get away with that. Not all of us can sit down and be heard. I think you could, particularly on that kind of thing, and sit up. So maybe sometime in the future you'd have an opportunity to try that again, because I thought it was a really neat thing.
I have a cold, but about 5 years ago in my country, Togo, 2 job seekers walked into an international institution's interview room for an engineering position. That was an opportunity for one among them to do away with hardship by getting a well-paid job. Because in my country, the minimum wage that is paid for a civil servant per month is $60. Among the 2 unemployed, one is good at engineering, and the other is just basic in the domain. At the end of the day, the guy with the very basic knowledge got the job. So why did he get the position? The answer is simple. The guy could speak English. The guy is good at English. As a matter of fact, ladies and gentlemen, dear fellows, this is an example of how influential the English language is on citizens of the 26 French-speaking countries of Africa in their struggle to improve. I dare say Abdul Karim Goza, my friend from Niger, Marie-Léopoldine Tossou from Côte d'Ivoire, Brahim Thiam from Mauritania, Manoara Koutoarison from Madagascar, Narcisse Kouari from Congo, the small one, as he used to say. And I, Abdurrahman Bamba, we might not be the best among our peers back home championing the same causes, but we are here today in the Yali because we can speak English. Because we can read in English, we can write in English, we can actually understand English, and all that goes around. Ladies and gentlemen, we are today, these people are mentioned, people to reckon with as far as the future of Africa is concerned. The story I told could stop here if it was a matter of exemplification. As a matter of fact, the story could stop here, but the story is not going to stop here because it's not a matter of exemplification, and we exemplars are mentioned are just the few parts of the whole that the mother nature, made kind of well-rounded. What about the majority? What about those people who have what it takes, but they suffer limitation due to the fact that they don't speak English? They cannot express themselves and deliver their knowledge in English. Why should they be limited by the system of education? Why should they be limited by financial means? And why should they be limited by the fact that their country has been colonized by the English? What about that advisee of my boss of Education USA in Togo? What about Simtado, the top-ranking child of the Togo nationwide high school examination? Yes, the guy has to cool his heels in Morocco instead of pursuing his studies in the Ivy League and becoming a major African change maker, simply because he couldn't speak English. Ladies and gentlemen, if I volunteered for 5 years now through English Club teaching Togolese students, Togolese children to master some English, if I have created English reading sessions through my English clubs in Lomé, the capital town of Togo, the reason lies in the fact that our youth remain a limited resource in the family of African nations as well as the West nations. I understand that talking about the importance of English to you people so knowledgeable about it will be like telling Kachi that he is a psychologist, very passionate about postpartum depression, or trying hard to convince Gloria Chukia, who comes from South Sudan, that she is a Sudanese. Far from me the intention of insulting your intellect by trying to explain things that are self-evident to you. I learned together with you that comfort zone are detrimental to any development whatever. And that is where I expect us to see the challenge. For the children in our French-speaking countries to learn English and expand their horizons beyond the French-speaking barriers, I have these questions for us. Would you all here rally support for a series of voluntary trainings in English for children from French-speaking countries like mine? Yes. Would you rally together with me in a fundraising campaign so we can build English clubs and try to actually improve the level of English of the French-speaking children who are limited by this language? Yes. Or would you simply join me for a social media campaign to draw my French-speaking peers' attention on the importance of English? Because if you are able to do one of those, we will be, or should I say, all of us here will be able next time to appreciate the skills of those African French-speaking children all over the world. Merci beaucoup.
Yeah, so I think it was really easy to understand your specific purpose, and part of the way is you framed it in a real clear narrative up front. So we knew your purpose, we knew it up front, and you reinforced that. I think that's really nice. The one thing you might consider doing is either
describing to us how those clubs come to be and how they fit either in the education system or if they're extra, alongside or behind. So just how they fit into the system as you're asking us to join. I think that would be really.
Yeah. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Amina Mohammed Jaji, and I'm from Nigeria. Raise your hands up if, as a child, you had to beg to survive. Beg for food to survive. Anybody? Raise your hands up if, growing up as a child, you had no one to teach or show you love and compassion, to teach you about mercy and the importance of values, respect, and discipline. You had nobody to teach you how to become a responsible human being. Nobody. Raise up your hands if, as a child, you were deprived of your right to human dignity, deprived of your right to quality education, deprived of your right to health and access to health care services, deprived of your right to a safe and secured environment, free of violence, exploitation, and all forms of abuse. Well, in northern Nigeria, where I was born and raised, an estimated 8.6 million children, male children, between the age of 4 to 15 years will raise up their hands to answer yes to this question. These disturbing questions. This unimaginable life goes unchecked because of a deeply entrenched tradition which was meant to provide Muslim children with sound Islamic education to help them to prepare to be useful members of the society. It has been abused, so much so that it has turned against the very ones it was meant to benefit. Automatically turning children into destitutes, turning potential scientists, teachers, professors, doctors, engineers, potential law enforcement officials into unskilled, unemployable adults who are easily influenced into criminal acts, and as recently experienced during the Boko Haram crisis, child soldiers, terrorists, adult and children suicide bombers. If we are to progress in northern Nigeria and Nigeria as a whole, this practice needs to stop or at least be regulated. So far, we are raising awareness and we're beginning to try to cajole our traditional rulers, our religious leaders, our politicians to take a stand against this practice. So I appeal to you to join in the struggle to stop the culture of child begging and destitution in northern Nigeria, not because it affects you, but because no child deserves to live like this.
No child deserves such a life. Thank you.
I really like feels like.
In Africa, faith-based organization plays a key role in the society. Many African countries have many religions, and we acknowledge that many of them really have strong spiritual values. I stand here as a young man who is engaged in the society, in multiple organizations, playing an advisory role in many associations, and also I'm a strong believer. What if in the society we had some faith-based organizations or religious leaders who had civic engagement mindedness about all the issues that the country may live? We have countries where we have violence, we have wars, we have many development issues, but still many of the folks don't seem to be interested, engaged in what is going on around them. The truth is, many of them are influenced by their leaders. When you have a leader who has a certain view, it's clear that all his folks will develop the same view. The problem we have realized is that many of those leaders do not have any civic engagement mindedness, leading them to people who cannot deal effectively with civic issues. We have violence that keeps on going up. We have drugs. We have exclusion. All the negativity of the society can be seen, but yet we still have more and more people praying, lifting up their hands or knocking their heads on the ground, praying to God. In DRC, just recently, January, there was a great conflict. There's still conflict, actually, yes. But the Catholic Church gathered all the political leaders on the same table in order to find a solution to what was going on. The war has not yet ended. There are still some ties in DRC, but at least they have an agenda to come out of the situation of conflict. I see we cannot resolve social issue without considering religious leaders and faith-based organizations, because by working with them, we will have access to a large network of people. A simple message can be spread out very speedily all around a country or on multiple levels of the community. I invite you then, if you are a decision-making person, if you are just a citizen somewhere in a city, you should consider also the religious group, the community group in all the aspects of the society. Thank you. I did not prepare a lot.
In a conversational way about a topic that is really complex and involved all kinds of big ideas. And I think that helps land those kinds